Hello and welcome to the Tifo Football podcast. I'm Joe Devine, and today I'm delighted to be joined by JJ Bull.
Sounds like you're talking really fast, Joe.
I am, because guess what? There's people from a more important podcast waiting outside for us to finish recording the intro. You know, we do that at the end, by the way. It's a sort of time shift thing.
So it's useful that I've already sort of deliberately derailed this bit to add on more time.
Yeah. Jhon McKenzie.
It would be really bad, I think, if we did drag this bit out. I
It
think
would be.
Steve's going spare.
Yeah, because I can, through the window, I can see the people waiting and I can see how important they are. And there's something about that makes me want to slow down a little bit. Steve's looking nervous. Steve Hankey's here.
Hello.
You can hear it in his croaky, crackly little voice there. And of course, also, we're so happy to be joined. I think it's a first back this year. Back on VidVid, it's Ruben Pinder. We're abandoning the baby.
Hello.
Ruben.
Hello. Thanks for having me back. Been a pleasure.
It's nice, isn't it? It's nice.
Well, it will be a pleasure for the rest of the show because this is the intro.
Thank you. Yes. Now, what did we talk about today? What will we talk about? You've put me in a strange tense now. What did we talk about today? Arsenal, Manchester City. We talked about Arsenal, Manchester City, 5-1. Something. What even is an elite finisher these days? Do they have Tudor feet? I forgot about that. I don't even know what Tudor feet is.
Neither do I.
It's just Henry VIII, isn't it? Like, he has square feet.
Did he have square feet?
I don't know. All the shoes he wore were square.
Okay. Good. Square
made
shoes.
of Lego.
Yeah. Crystal Palace soaring up the table ahead of Manchester United. We talk about that. Ruben gives us the inside skinny on Palace so far this season. I don't think you can have the skinny. That's sort of like a double negative, isn't it? Can you have the inside skinny or just the skinny? Or the inside knowledge?
Do you understand that we get inside knowledge from what has been read there?
Yeah. But is it the skinny feel? If you're getting the skinny,
Steve,
I feel
if
like
you could hurry up, please. We're running a little bit late.
Will Marcus Rashford's move to Aston Villa work or bear fruit? If so, what kind of fruit? And Jhon Duran's move to Saudi Arabia, we talk about that. Is it a bad idea or not? And we also played Points Are Bad. That was it, wasn't it? That was good. That's
hella full.
And then we did a plug for a show that we're doing as well also.
That comes immediately after this. Yeah.
So get ready for that.
That's after the music is finished playing, you'll hear that. And I'm just thinking if there's anything else I can do to drag out. It's the Athletic FC podcast outside. It's a very good podcast, by the way. It's really, they put a lot of effort into making sure that they arrive on time.
They stay within time.
Whereas I was late today, and that's why we've overrun. But I hope whatever their show is goes really well. I wonder what it's on. Could be on anything, couldn't it? It's deadline day today. Oh, I do actually need to say that. It is deadline day today as we record, but our podcast won't be released until the day after deadline day, which, as we all know, is deadline day +1. Or deadline day minus
Day, I think it's called.
150.
Where you box up all of the
deadline
failed transfers.
Deals, yeah.
And send them out to the poor.
So it's possible that we'll talk today about things that don't make any sense when this is released. And that's just an editorial decision that we've taken. We made it on purpose. Not because we're lazy and didn't want to change the day, or not because we don't care about you or how valuable your time is. And especially not because we don't care about the value of the time of the people waiting outside for me to finish speaking.
And just because we should talk about Man United selling all of their players, every single one, and replacing them with newer ones, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Because you can decide how interesting and valid those analyses are yourself.
Everyone is the captain of their own vessel.
Yes.
And
I think
Ruben's
Ruben's
taken his
gone.
headphones off. He's done already.
To be honest, I'm done.
I'm late for I'm late for a meeting. It's not just them you're delaying.
Meeting as well. Okay, well, in which case we better wrap this up. Shouldn't we? I was hoping I'd just keep going until Steve actually interrupted me, but he hasn't picked up on the hint that creatively he should do that, and that would have made it if he spoke on the microphone. Before we begin today's podcast, let me remind you, we announced last week, we have a live performance, a live show, our feet on the boards of the Soho Theatre in Walthamstow, northeast London. It's very confusing, isn't it, that it's called the Soho Theatre, but it's not in Soho.
But it's like Soho House or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the brand.
It hasn't opened yet, right? It's like it's going to be relatively new when we start. I do wonder how many people will book tickets to the Soho Theatre and then accidentally go to Soho on the. It probably will happen.
Oh, yeah, that's possible, yeah.
It used to happen at the Old Red Lion Theatre, Uncle Damien's theatre pub. For a while in his era there, he had a second theatre pub down the road. It was called get this, the New Red Lion. Pretty cool. Pretty smart name. It was down Old Street. And it was really cool. It was like the theatre was in the bar. So unlike at the Old Red where it was upstairs, you would just be in the main body of the pub there and you'd be watching a show. James McNicholas, Gunnerblog, the Athletic fame, he did a really long run of Shakespeare Abridged at the New Red Lion.
Did he really?
He was really funny, and it's so funny.
He's the funniest guy in the world, that guy, yeah.
That's the reason that there's a life-size cutout of him in my uncle's house. It's very odd every time I see that.
I didn't know you had that.
Yeah, but alas, we're in Walthamstow on the 24th of May. That's a Saturday. The 24th of May, for a show that, according to the website, lasts 100 minutes. I don't know if it does yet. It's probably going to go over that.
My friends asked me that, and I was like,
What, how long it lasts?
Yeah.
They asked you how long it lasts, didn't they?
Is it 100 minutes?
Hey, do you want to come to this show I'm doing? And they said, how long is it?
Saying 100 minutes is a weird way of representing that time frame, isn't it?
I guess so. I feel like you're safe in 90 minutes, but as soon as you start to say 100,
you lose sense of what it means as well, right? Like, what's 130 minutes?
Because it's a round number, but it's not a round hour.
Yeah.
It's,
right.
I guess the reason is the change in the and how we keep track of time, added on time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Running order.
Well, I guess there'll be an interval involved. I mean, I suppose it'll be like what will it be? It will
a show of two halves.
Yeah, 85 minutes maybe, all in all. A short game of football, no added time. Alas, it's going to be very fun, and a part of it will be a podcast. A lot of it will simply be a show. So if you want to come and watch us in our pomp, our pageantry, then please do. You can visit the Soho Theatre website to find tickets. There'll be a link in the description also. If you don't want to be too close to us, there's a circle. You can sit quite far away and not fear that you'll be infected by any of the weird diseases that we have.
Come and watch us from a distance. Sort of a weird clarion call, isn't it?
Come and watch us from a distance.
Want to see us, but not really see us that close?
Saturday the 24th of May. I've hit my microphone. Anyway, please buy tickets and come, because my wife is coming and I want to prove to her that I am, in fact, real. Haven't been lying this whole time. Anyway, where else to begin other than... Let me just get the plan up. Obviously, it would be used. Oh, yes! Arsenal 5. 1 Manchester City. Now, good Lord, 1 Manchester City. This didn't quite feel, JJ, did it, like a... Wait, were you on a plane?
No, I watched this one.
Okay, good.
I specifically got the later plane back so I could watch this for work.
Well, it worked out to be quite a good decision, because although it didn't feel like a 5-1 affair until the very end when you went, it is actually 5-1. It was actually 5-1, wasn't it? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, really fun game. I thought, but it felt like Arsenal dominated them by the end of it. But maybe the scoreline had something to do with that. But yeah, I just really enjoyed it.
Sure,
it was just fun.
Yeah, it was very hectic at times, wasn't it? The first half and the second half felt very different, though.
First half felt, anything would have been better than the other game they showed on the TV. What was the Spurs against?
Spurs Brentford.
Oh God, it was awful.
Brentford
wasn't it?
Spurs.
So really boring. Then this felt like a bit bigger and more exciting.
Sure.
And then I think
it was bigger and more exciting.
Definitely, but then because they scored in like 5 minutes, right? It was really early, and then because it's from an error, like, oh, here we go again. There's gonna be a good narrative here, and then it almost happened again. Got ruled out. That makes it more exciting. You feel it's going to come into it. It's got all the bits that you want from that story. Like Haaland scored after all the winding up. You can tell there's a bit of needle. You can see Saliba pulling on Haaland's hair at one of the corners.
I love that.
I like that. It's a bit not Weasley. It's not there's
eggy.
I don't like that word either.
You don't like egg?
No.
Edgy. There's a bit of edge to it.
Bit of edge, yeah.
Toxicity.
Yes.
Yeah.
It feels a bit like
toxic masculinity.
Juicy
it's definitely
beef.
A hold me back type thing.
Right. Yeah.
It's not real, but it's still. I enjoyed that. We need that.
I have to be held back often, but as opposed to it being from other people, it's usually from the fridge. It's.
Rachel enjoyed that one.
Rachel liked that. Well, let's
get her in the live show.
Get her in the live show. At least there'll be one person laughing.
Front row guaranteed laughs.
Yeah, my fridge jokes. Yeah. Now listen, Jhon, you thought Arsenal were a little different in this game, didn't you? I was watching them in the first half, thinking same old plodding along Arsenal. They've scored. Now that's going to be the end of the game. But it wasn't, and they did play a little differently after City scored.
Yeah, these games. Traditionally, last few seasons have been quite tetchy affairs, right? It's been
tetchy.
I like that one.
That's good, isn't it?
It's because it's got hard consonants.
Yeah.
But usually both teams try and stop the other team from doing anything and hope that things sort of variance in their favour. And it looked like it was kind of going that way. Like you said, Arsenal get the first goal, but then after that, it just felt as though they were fairly happy to just let City have the ball and say, come on then, see if he can break us down. And eventually they managed to do that. And then weirdly, Arsenal then just immediately scored a couple of goals and it was game over. But we saw a bit of a different approach out of possession in this game, which I thought was quite interesting. That's what I've done my Did You Notice video on this week. Because this season, actually, Arsenal have set up quite differently to the way they did last season. Last season, they would press out of a 4-4-2 shape, so you'd have two players in the front line of your press. And what teams started to do was split their centre-backs apart just to increase the distances, because if you do that, then it becomes unmanageable to actually track opposition centre-backs. So what Arsenal have started doing this season is, rather than having Ødegaard jumping up alongside the striker, they've been using him a bit deeper and then using generally one of the wingers, mainly Martinelli, in recent weeks to track the second centre-back. So essentially, if they split their centre-backs apart, the striker follows one and then the winger covers the other, and then it's less of an issue if they're far apart, because you're covering the middle as well.
Bit hybrid-y.
Yeah. And this is what happens when teams find a solution to your pressing. You find a different way of pressing. But interestingly, in this game, Arsenal went back to what they used last season. They went with the 4-4-2 shape, which I thought was interesting for a couple of reasons. One is City are a team who are just going to try and build through the middle. So they actually played with a box midfield. So they had like a double pivot, and then the two, like they had Foden and Marmoush sort of inside in front of them. They're going to try and get the ball through the centre of the pitch. Yes, they had Savinho on one side, but they had Nunes on the other. And I think Arsenal, in those sorts of situations, Arteta is always happy to allow the weaker player to have the ball.
Yeah.
So they were clearly much less worried about the wide spaces. So they blocked out the middle and stopped City from being able to build through the centre, which obviously worked really well. But I thought the really interesting aspect of it was that it put Ødegaard back into that front line of the press.
Yeah.
And obviously the biggest two chances of the game, I think, actually were generated through Arsenal's aggressive high press, with Ødegaard involved in both. And I thought for the first goal, interesting that because Ødegaard was in that front line, when they won the ball back, he was just really well placed to be able to finish the chance. But actually, if you watch the second chance, which is the Havertz big miss that should have been a goal, Ødegaard was actually pressing really high up on the far side of the pitch and helps produce the pressure on Ortega who then plays the ball, and then City lose it. So I thought it was quite an interesting one, this one, because it did represent like doing things in a very different way to what they've been doing the rest of the season, which I think maybe indicates the fact that City is still sort of playing the same way that they always play. A lot of other teams are playing quite differently and trying to find those advantages. So,
but is the difference just that Ødegaard is in the front line of the press and he's good at it? Is that the difference?
It meant that City were able to. It meant that Arsenal were able to, I think, be more aggressive in their press than they would have been
because
otherwise.
They had him.
Partly because of his profile, because he's fantastic, both intelligently but also in terms of his intensity.
Yeah.
But also, I think that having him in that front line rather than having a winger just allows you to be a little bit quicker onto the centre backs and build up. And I think we saw that for the first goal. It comes from Ødegaard pressing onto John Stones, who then plays the ball across to Akanji. I don't think that would have happened in quite the same way if it was Martinelli coming around the side. There's a sense as well in which I think maybe Arteta expected City to do what they did in recent weeks, which is play with their fullbacks high. So rather than having your winger high, you don't want to allow that width. So you play with your two wingers a little bit deeper and use the front line as well. So there's loads of different considerations for why he might have done this. But in many respects, I thought what was interesting about them was that they were quite intense in certain phases, like pressing right up, but then at times they were just happy to drop off as well. Whereas it feels as though more recently Arsenal have been a bit more mid-blocky and just sort of wanting to keep a little bit of pressure on the opposition's build-up, and not really wanting to drop too deep. With City, they were happy to drop deep when City had the ball because they knew that they probably weren't going to be that dangerous. But at certain times, I thought they were much more intense than they've been in that high press, in those high pressing moments. And I think partly that's because they had Ødegaard in that front line, so they felt a bit more comfortable doing that. He's also in that front line, I think, a lot more of a trigger, so probably reads those situations where you can jump up a little bit better, and I thought that produced at least for the first half, like the most dangerous chances, which I thought was quite interesting.
I liked it a lot more than usual as well. The experience for me was different in the same way that you just said, Arsenal were happy to drop off in this game. Usually I'd be very happy to drop off during an Arsenal game because, good Lord, it's at times it's a pondering affair, isn't it? But they were very exciting, Ruben. And one of the characters in the Arsenal team there, one of the cast that they have, main cast perhaps, Kai Havertz, who scored a terrific goal about 20 minutes after missing a really, not necessarily, I don't want to call it easy because...
It was easy.
That's as easy a chance as you're going to get.
If you're a professional footballer, it's easy.
You'd have two-parted that in.
I would have maybe, because I have I can kick the ball incredibly straight.
Football technique, you would have launched that.
You're saying the issue with Havertz is he can't kick it straight.
No. just that were I in his situation, I've got incredible aim, but only straight, no curving. I'd be useless at free kicks.
Specifically in the Doc Martin boots that you
in trainers.
Okay.
I've got a very square front of the foot there. I've got a sort of
very Tudor foot.
Yes, that's it. I've got a Tudor foot.
And if you catch it with the corner of your foot, then it goes diagonally miles wide.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
Whereas Kai Havertz has a completely normal foot, as far as I'm aware.
Germanic foot.
A standard Germanic foot, not a Tudor foot.
Yeah.
And he caused a lot of entertainment, didn't he, there during the game, Ruben? I mean, we were all caught for a while, I'm sure you included, going, oh, he can't finish. That's a tale as old as time. And then he's finished a lovely one. And I thought, oh, is it more complicated? What do you think?
Yeah, the Havertz situation is a weird one, isn't it? The miss was really bad, and he's quite wasteful a lot of the time. But the goal that he scored was very good. And I mean, a lot of people are quite quick to criticise him because maybe of his language style and the fact that, like, recently, I can't remember who they were playing. He missed a couple of very good headed opportunities late on.
Man United.
Yeah, in the cup. And I remember saying, like, watching the game yesterday, as he overlaps Martinelli, like, why is he making that run? Because it looked like it was too far to go and it was taking him further away from goal. But, what do I know? It was a great finish. Stones seemingly at the scene of the crime for every goal as well. But
it's a bit of a low dig there.
He just wanted to throw that one in.
Nah, he was.
Like when a serial killer turns up to the scene.
Yeah, Stone's just always going back. But the question of, like, whether they need to upgrade on him is it's not an easy one to figure out, really, is it? Because, like, they bid lots of money for Ollie Watkins, probably knowing that they weren't going to get him, just as like maybe, but it's clearly not their top priority. And I don't necessarily think it should be, because you can score lots of goals without a Haaland or like a traditional number 9 who you expect to score one every week, as many teams have done. Yeah. Liverpool, for years, their goals, and mostly still do, come from their wide areas. And, Saka's absence probably exacerbates that problem. And it's also worth remembering that Havertz plays, like, way too many games because Gabriel Jesus is so rarely fit, and now Saka's injured, and they just haven't invested in their front line as much as they have everywhere else on the pitch. So the fact that he's still playing, as intensely and kind of confidently as he did yesterday is quite impressive. But yeah, Havertz is a player that I've never really been able to work out. I've, like, flip-flopped on whether he's actually good and everyone is stupid, or whether he's actually not cut out for that kind of challenge.
Yeah, and everyone's still stupid, but for different reasons.
Yeah, and I just don't know, so I'm putting myself in the stupid category as well.
Fair enough. That's always a safe bet, JJ.
Well, I live in the stupid category.
What do you think about Kai Havertz? I mean, when I think back to when he was first signed by Chelsea, there was a huge amount of excitement around him. Different sort of player, wasn't he? And then it didn't really work out, but there was still excitement when he moved to Arsenal. Could he recapture that magic? I mean, in some cases he seems to have, in others it's, I don't know.
I can't remember his numbers. I can look it up while I'm talking, but I'll distract from what I'm saying. So what I'll do instead is I'll just tell you what I think. Okay, he scored like 12 last year. Yeah. So that's good. Yeah. Right? So
fact check that for me, Ruben.
I'll say some stuff and you fact check and see how close I am. That'll be good. Right? And he probably was just a little bit under his XG last season as well.
Oh, interesting.
But the thing with Havertz is that he is clearly a really talented, like, international level footballer, but doesn't give you, like, amazing numbers.
Yeah.
So it's like when you play Football Manager, it goes back to this. You sign a player for like that, and they always cost you like 60, 70 million, but you can sign some other wonder kid who gets more goals or more assists or does more things. But he's a really good footballer. One of the things that lets him down is that he is like the king of the weasels.
Right.
He always goes down to win free kicks for his team.
Sure.
But he's super strong and really big. He also looks really slow, but when he wants to turn it on, he's very fast.
He's super fast.
So like he burned past like 2 players on the right wing in one of the runs. I remember seeing him play against Nottingham Forest a couple of seasons ago in real life, and he just looked like he didn't have the speed. But I think he's doing it on purpose. It's like he's really confusing to watch because he does things that make you think he's different to what he is.
Right.
But if
got
he
a bit of a Berbatov to him.
A little bit, but then
It's more like when it goes wrong, it looks awful.
Well,
I
think you sort of lose a bit of my artist cred when you do things that are weaselly and like trying to win the game. So when you fall over, when you're really strong, like to go on these battles, you have to be really strong and have to have really good balance and be aggressive. But the minute you I've fallen over, you get a free kick for it. He does it a lot.
Yeah, I should say. I mean, most professional footballers do this.
They all do that.
But are you saying it just looks funnier when he does it because he's big and strong?
I noticed it's because he's so clever and clearly good. Like he is stronger than people that I know he's at it.
Yeah,
and that annoys me a little bit. Sometimes he does things that look pretty cool. I had to watch him a little bit when he was at Leverkusen before, and the way he would make late runs to score the goals, and he's kind of misprofiled a little bit. He's one of these players that in 2001 would be part of a 4-4-2 team, but he's not the main one.
Yeah,
I don't know why Jhon Thomason is in my head for some reason. That sort of player.
What a deep cut.
Well, I mean, at Newcastle, they brought in Jhon Thomason to be next to Shearer back in 99 or something like that.
Sure.
And then Shearer got injured.
Right.
And so Thomason had to, it's 97 actually. Then Thomason had to be the main striker, but he wasn't really that sort of player, and he ended up getting about 11 goals or something like that.
That role has disappeared, hasn't it? Like the slightly smaller, slightly more mobile second striker.
Well, I think it's actually kind of back in. It's kind of why he would be there. Like it did definitely go away, but now I think you start to see it a little bit more because you can play 4-4-2
coming from wide areas, maybe.
Oh, maybe.
Dele Alli, similar. I think people thought of him as a midfielder when he was at Spurs, but he did a very similar job to that player.
Yeah.
And for some reason, like Thomason, the player that's just coming to my head is Shinji Okazaki.
Yeah.
Oh, I liked him.
He was fun, wasn't he?
He was fun, yeah.
I think
Havertz scored 13 league goals last season.
Very close. You said 12.
From 12.3 XG.
Oh, just over his XG. No, but you were very close.
Close enough.
But this is the thing, Havertz is clearly a really great player.
Yeah.
But personally, I'd rather have different sorts of players on my team. But I get why you'd have him, and he helps you win games, which should be a good thing.
You hate bad thieves. That's the thing. If a thief has style, gets in, gets out, and you can't catch them, you love that all over it. But if a thief gets in and then accidentally, rings the doorbell on the way out, you
that's
think
sort of
that's
Mr.
bad.
Beanish. I don't mind that.
You don't mind you like that?
Yeah, it's more. I don't know. It'd be like if you break into the house forcefully.
Yeah.
Or you've planned it really well and it's clever. That's it's a good thief. But if it's you're disguised as the mailman and it's an old lady's house, you're like, hi, I'm here to deliver something. I'll just come in now.
Right.
Then you steal something while she's in the other room. It's not good.
That's the weasel element.
That's the weasel crime.
Right, the weasel crime. And they have their own court for that, the weasels.
They do.
Let me tell you, they're not kind to the guilty weasels. Terrible weasel rights there anyway. Now, if you were to compare Kai Havertz to another striker, Jhon, if you were to think, because one of the criticisms, as we've said, that we levy against him sometimes is that he's not a good finisher. Then he goes and does something like he did at the weekend, and that feels very different. But if you were to try to sort of decide whether or not that's true, what data would you look at? Who would you compare him to? Because he's quite an unusual player.
Yeah. There's a lot to take in, I think, with Havertz, because I think, to fact-check the fact-checking, he scored 9 league goals last season. There was, I think, 4 Champions League goals in there.
Oh, wow. There's a train of fact-checking here now. Okay.
And I meant league goals.
I think what's interesting is in the calendar year, he scored 26 goals across all competitions, including international goals. He had
last year?
The last calendar year.
Oh, calendar year.
I've just sort of worked it out now. And he had a really nice purple patch across the course of the year. And it led to people saying, is he back? Like we talked about with Man City last week. Do you remember? Man City back?
When they were back. Well, they were back last week.
Now, aren't they?
Less back now. Yeah.
They're so over now.
They're so done. Yeah, but I think that's the interesting thing with Havertz is that I guess all strikers are quite streaky, but he did have a nice streak last season. I think there's certain things about Arsenal that probably make Havertz a fairly good sort of fit for them in that respect. But the thing that I always think with Havertz is that when he broke on the scene, you've got to remember he was 16, 17 years old, really young at Leverkusen.
Yeah.
And at that point, he still hadn't finished growing. So back then,
like me.
Yeah, exactly. When you were
when I get to the fridge,
when you were coming through at Leverkusen and you hadn't quite, people misprofiled you, right?
I was in that graduation class of Julian Brandt. Charles Aranguiz was my best friend. Who was the great striker in that system? The Kevin
Karagny.
Kevin Campbell. Kevin
Kevin Volland.
Kevin Volland.
Karani was years ago.
Forest legend. Forest and Leverkusen legend.
Kevin Volland, he was a great player, and they had that really fast. They had a really fast man, and Bailey was there as well. Aston Villa's Bailey was there, and I was
weird
there.
niche of knowledge we've uncovered in you there.
Do you know why it is? It's because up until recently, the last time I had a FIFA game was that. When would that have been? Like 2015, something like that.
No,
2016.
Not that far. What with when Havertz was coming through?
Yeah, when Havertz was his
actually.
last
That's quite
season at
scary,
Dortmund. Yeah, not Dortmund. Sorry, his last season.
Well, he
at
went to
Leverkusen.
Chelsea in 2020.
Actually, maybe it was 2019 then.
I've got his match.
Christ, that
log.
is 6 years ago, isn't
Yeah.
it?
15,
Good Lord.
16, 17 was his first season, I think.
Okay, well, it was around. This is unnecessary detail. This is like saying, when did it happen? I think it was Tuesday. It was in a year that wasn't now in the past, and for some reason, I got really into playing. What's that mode where you just pick a team and then you're like in leagues and
Seasons online. Yeah,
and you
it's
can
good
pick a
fun.
different
Yeah.
team every time. I just got really into the habit of playing with Leverkusen. They had a really well balanced team. Really liked them, and I got to know all of their
Did they
players.
have Demirbay back then?
They did have Demirbay.
Karen
Yeah,
Demirbay.
yeah.
I used
He
to
was
love
good,
him.
man.
He was a great player.
He was really good. Yeah, they had some good defenders as well. But Charles Aranguiz was my favourite, partly because he was such a reliable chap, but also because of the way that the commentator at the time said, Charles Aranguiz.
Have you heard how he says De Bruyne?
No.
De Bruyne.
De Bruyne.
There was
Sounds
an
like something
old-
out of Doctor Who.
It's my fellow Aberdeen supporting commentator,
Derek Ray.
Derek Ray, yeah. De Bruyne.
De Bruyne. He's rendered in the game, isn't he?
Yes.
Is
he really?
Yeah, he is.
Oh, that's
At half time in a club's game, you'll see Derek Gray's just smiling, just stood there looking around.
Just being
not
really
saying
lovely and
anything.
nice.
Yeah, just being nice, but wordlessly nice, like Mr. Bean, you know?
There was an old FIFA, I think when they had Martin Tyler, and every time Adebayor got the ball, he got full named as if he was shooting. So he'd like take kickoff and he'd go, Emmanuel Adebayor!
That is one of my favourite things from all video games because
Yeah,
they were so
Full
cartoony.
name.
yeah.
Like International Superstar Soccer.
Well, they've done one recording of each.
Nigeria are in the lead.
I like, my favourite of all time was Charles Nzogbia. From, I don't know when, 20
I remember all
September.
these,
What a player he was. by the way.
Charles Nzogbia.
Brazil are in the ascendancy.
Anyway, from boy to man, I think we were talking about. Who were we talking
We
about?
were we were talking about Havertz, and I was saying that he was quite a techie, like thought of as quite a techie kind of midfield, like wide player
Before
when
he'd grown, right?
Before he'd grown,
Yeah.
yeah. And he's now what? He's quite tall, 6'4".
Is he
that tall?
6'4"?
Yeah, I think so.
Something like
He's a
that.
gangly boy.
Yeah, and so I think that in many respects, the argument is made that people had this idea of him that he then sort of grew out of,
Right.
and as a result, that's been why various managers have sort of struggled to fit him into
Well,
teams.
So he got
Actually-
taller and his profile changed.
At Chelsea, they signed Lukaku like a year after signing Havertz with the intention of playing Havertz in one of the like narrow
Yeah.
3-4-3 forward positions with Mount on
They
the other
played him
side.
off the right, didn't they? And then Mount on the other side.
And then Lukaku had like one good game against Arsenal, disappeared, and then they put Havertz back in the middle, and then Arsenal signed him to play as a left 8, and then that didn't work because Rice is a 6, Havertz is an 8 for a multitude of reasons, doesn't work. So then they just put him back up front. So it feels like he's been still not fully defined as a kind of position.
Yeah.
Which could be a good thing, I suppose. Could be. I mean, I want an answer to my question, though. Of course, who can I compare Kai Havertz to, JJ? Because if I can't compare him to another player in my head, it's all chaos up there.
Well, I use FB Ref, and they just do these things where you can, they take their stats and then shows who they're similar to.
Oh, yeah.
It's a few players I wouldn't expected. I mean, Lautaro Martinez,
Oh.
Antoine Griezmann, Marcus Thuram. He's not the same as him.
I can see the Griezmann thing a little bit.
Girassi, Vissa,
Yeah.
Lacazette,
Lacazette.
Julian Alvarez. I don't know. He's like a sort of large Bergkamp, but with less composure
I like
in front
that.
of goal.
Yeah.
Positionally, the Griezmann comparison makes sense because, and it makes me think maybe Havertz would have been great in that 4-4-2 in a different era.
I think Griezmann's
like
I
we were
think
saying
one of
earlier.
the best players of the last
Yeah,
15
same,
years.
yeah.
Imagine if he was tall and could head.
Well, he's really good in the air.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
But what if he was even taller?
Yeah,
though?
I mean, fair.
I guess if
Listen,
all players were larger, they'd be better, wouldn't they?
I think if they would be larger
You can
but
be- you can-
retain their technical ability.
Yeah, like if Messi
then,
was
yeah.
8 foot.
but able to move like he
And the
is,
same
yeah,
speed.
obviously the greatest, like not even ever a conversation
Well, that's
about
that's
who's-
Victor Wembanyama, isn't it? In the NBA. I don't know if do you know who Victor Wembanyama
I do know who that
is?
is, yeah.
yeah.
For listeners who don't, I don't know how old he is now. Maybe he's still under 20, I think. He's a French NBA player. and he's something
He's
like
French.
he's
21.
French.
Did not know
He's
that.
21 now, is he? He's 11 foot tall, I believe. That's not true. But he's very, very, very tall. And whereas in the olden days of the NBA, the big men usually just stood around, bumped people about and passed the ball and got rebounds and
He
stuff.
is 7'3".
He's 7'3".
2
so
meters
he's
20.
about 5 inches off the tallest
foot
ever
taller than
NBA
Kai
player.
Havertz.
He's absolutely huge, and he's got these very, very kind of long, long arms, long legs. But the thing that's different about him is, as they call it in basketball, his handles. The way he handles the ball, he can dribble the ball. He can play like a playmaker who's a full foot shorter than him. It's crazy. And I remember 10 years ago, Russell Westbrook, who was the point guard for the Oklahoma City Thunder for a while. He's 6'3" or 4. He was at the time a tall player to be a player who had the techers that he had. He was at the time. There were lots of conversations about the evolution of the point guard position. Are all the basketball players going to become the sort of same? 10 years later, Victor Wembanyama, a whole foot taller, and apparently his parents knew he was going to be tall because they're also like 7 footers. They knew he was going to be tall, so they taught him lots of yoga from a young age. They taught him to be flexible from a young age, and now
all the
dividends.
more impressive after his Premier League career with Southampton and Spurs as well.
Exactly. Let's have a break there. Yeah, Steve wants a break. And what a lovely break that was. I had a lot of fun during that break, and now I want to come back to not be breaking to find out, JJ, are Arsenal actually still in the title race here? Because they're only 6 points. 6 points behind. Liverpool do have a game in hand. Steve's very helpfully put in the fixtures for Arsenal and Liverpool. Unhelpfully, he's put them in on 2 different pages. So it's not actually that easy to compare them, is it? If anything, you would have thought that someone who was a professional who was paid to do this job
They'd be side by side.
would be side by side.
You
But
just
this
assumed you had object permanence,
No.
which I think is fair enough.
not fair at all. This is just a great example of the lack of care and attention to detail.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
Thank you, John. Thank you. But what do you think? It seems perhaps a little unlikely, but if there's a week to talk about it, it's this week, JJ.
If Liverpool lose 2 games and Arsenal win 2 games, then they would swap places.
But they'd have a game in hand still.
Yes, but then if they lost that game,
Then
and Arsenal won the next game.
Then they'd be even.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
And
could that happen?
So Liverpool
Yes.
have to lose a lot of games there, and
That's
Arsenal
doable. They've
have to-
only lost 1 so far. They look like they're storming away with the title.
It does appear that way, doesn't it?
The last time we did is X still in a title race was with Chelsea, who I now see on the table and outside of the Champions League spots.
Oh, yes.
So,
what did we both say to that? I think I said maybe.
I think I said yes.
Oh, good.
Well, at that point they were.
Yeah.
Now they're not anymore. So are Arsenal in a title race? Yes, but who knows? Who knows?Maybe.
Well, speaking
I
of...
want this to be my answer for that question.
Yes, but who knows? Liverpool's upcoming fixtures, I can tell you, there's a couple of cup games. So they've got Tottenham and Plymouth in the cups, and then Everton at home to Wolves, away to Man City, at home to Newcastle. So a few toughies. The very exciting one towards the end of the season, though, it's only 3 games before the end of the Premier League season, is Liverpool host Arsenal at Anfield.
Could be done by then, Joe.
It could be done by then, but
be
if it's
done.
not done by then, that'll be a big game. And let me tell you, the broadcasters are hoping, aren't they? They're hoping, Ruben.
They're hoping that they can turn their attention to that big game on that day. That will be the game where Arsenal nab a point, keep their title hopes alive, and then come second anyway.
Scupper it later. Yeah, because after that, Arsenal are at home to Newcastle and away to Southampton. And away to Southampton really feels like where they could lose it. It feels like that.
Even Spurs won at Southampton.
Southampton have all already been relegated by then. You can feel it. You've seen this on days, end of Premier League days.
The 5-0 Newcastle Spurs back in 2016.
Right. It could happen.
But isn't that's after they've lost the title?
Yeah,
So
sure.
For that to happen, it'll be Arsenal lose the week before, lose all hope,
Yeah.
and come to a drab 1-0 loss.
I suppose my
at
fun imagination really was
Yeah.
a waste of time. It
But
was a waste
I think
of time.
in terms of answering the question,
What was the question?
the question is: Are we still in a title race?
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those things where you look at it and you're like, well, there's tough fixtures for Liverpool coming up. They've got to play against David Moyes' Everton as their game in hand. What if that
Arsenal
doesn't
have
come
tough
through?
fixtures as well. Man United,
Quite-
Chelsea, Fulham, Everton.
They've got to drop 9 points in 14 league games, which it's a lot, I think.
Also
especially-
quite handily, like the game in hand, while it is against a better Everton team than it would have been at the time, it comes immediately after a cup game against Plymouth where they would almost certainly send a weakened team, right?
It's a rate of change thing as well. I think people always look at these things and they think, oh, all they have to do is pick up those. But essentially, they have to pick up points at a higher rate than Liverpool. And right now, at this point in the season, Liverpool are the team who are looking like the more competitive team with momentum, right? If basically what we're saying is Arsenal have to essentially win all of their games from here on in,
yes,
and still hope that Liverpool effectively lose 3 of their games.
That would have to be the minimum, right? Because if you stay, even if Arsenal drew one of the remaining games, now we're asking Liverpool to drop 11 points.
Yeah,
right. And it just
that's
feels
the question,
like it just
right?
can't happen.
Do you think that Arsenal are going to win all 14 of their games?
Yes,
that's what the question is.
I do think so. I've decided after yesterday. I do think so.
Okay.
I believe they will, Jhon, win all of their games.
Okay.
No, I just think they've got a little bit of momentum. I don't know if you can have momentum after one game, but if you can, I believe that one can.
What's like the first thing that then becomes momentum? What do you call that?
One game.
One game.
A win.
And the thing with momentum is that if they lose the next game, they lose the momentum. And momentum's hard to get.
I'm not sure that momentum can be gained after a singular point.
On YouTube, it can. Now, here's the... you know this, JJ, right? You know this to be true. If you could be going through a bad spot on YouTube, I don't know, a quick, social video platform lesson here, okay? There are some social platforms that don't, where the preceding video that you release has no impact on the following one. TikTok's a very famous platform in this regard, right? You can release 10 TikTok videos in a row, 9 of them can do 100 views, the next one could do 100 million, right? There's nothing in the algorithm that restricts that. YouTube is a little different, at least when you release horizontal videos, is that the impact of the previous video plays a role in terms of determining the impact of the reach of the following video, right? And sometimes when you get into a bit of a rut, as we're known to do here from time to time, it does happen. You have to sort of break out of it, right? And I think, oh God, got a crowd pleaser. What do we do? I don't know. Man United are bad, or Arsenal are bad, or whatever it is. Usually these days, usually I find that positive. A little. What do we find what do we think is good right now? Make a video, but people seem to like that a little more. But if you break out of the bad rut, one video, the following video will be positively impacted by that big one that you did, and therefore momentum exists in a single, not just in a two. Maybe you can only measure it with when the second is there,
sure,
but it does exist before you can measure it.
All momentum has to start with a singular point. I would agree with that. But
yes.
I think at this point,
I said at the top of the snowy mountain when I began to roll. Yeah.
Of course, on YouTube,
and I was singing London Forever.
On YouTube, though, you don't have Leicester City in your way.
Sometimes you do. In 2016, you definitely did have Leicester City in your way. It was a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
But, there are other teams that are in Arsenal's way here. It seems unlikely, doesn't it? I don't know. What do you think, Ruben? Could they overturn nine points?
No. In Spain, they have this expression, hay Liga, which means is there league? There is league.
Right.
And I would say that there is certainly league, but like the possibility of it actually being overturned is pretty low. But when it's within the realms of possibility, like 9 points, you kind of have to say, yeah, there's a title race.
Sure.
They're just probably not going to win it.
I think Steve fell off his chair again. Did you fall off your chair, Steve? Oh, he's taking his headphones off completely. Are you okay? Yeah? He actually looks kind of annoyed. What happened, Steve?
Just a mouse. It wasn't me or any bit of
actually
the office.
A mouse?
Yeah, an actual, like a computer mouse, not...
Oh.
They've got computer mice now.
Not an animal mouse.
Not an animal mouse, no. It would have made that sort of noise.
They're in the computer.
It's Skynet. They've got little digital mice running about.
They said it would happen. OpenAI,
They warned us.
Crystal Palace saw like the Eagles. It says here. Of course, I'm referring to Manchester United 0 to Crystal Palace. Now, this game wasn't televised on British television, Ruben, but you watched the extended highlights back. You're a big fan. You listened to it on the radio.
I did, yeah.
I hear. Yeah.
I was doing DIY, so I had it on the radio, like an old
What were you building?
What were you DIYing?
Furniture.
Which ones?
Well, just moving stuff around. I was just moving my girlfriend into a new flat, and we were just doing bits and bobs. So I had it on the radio. Yes, yeah.
He's given an image of something different. In my head, I imagined him with a white vest on, a pencil sort of tucked underneath his little hand.
Oh, no, none of that.
And he was sweaty and covered in sawdust. It was great. It was actually quite a romantic effect.
Doing an IKEA hack.
An IKEA hack, yeah. But no, you were just putting flat pack furniture together.
I was just emptying cardboard boxes, yeah.
And were you sad?
No, I was happy. I was listening to Palace beat Man United on the radio.
That's true. I forgot about that bit. Yeah, I forgot about that bit. When were you last sad?
I prefer not to speak.
Well, then, in which case, instead, then, tell me about the success that Palace enjoyed over the weekend. I mean, what happened there?
Well, we beat United again.
When was it? When did you beat last time?
There was a stat here. Most away wins at Old Trafford in the Premier League in the last 6 seasons. Palace have 4, which is more than Liverpool and Brighton, Arsenal, who are on 3-2. So it's a happy hunting ground for the Eagles now. And but I don't think anyone.
Sorry.
No one would have been really surprised by this result, right? Given how the season's going for United. But
do you think that makes Manchester United a sort of vole?
I mean, the headlines would normally be like, huge upset, but it's not a huge upset anymore.
No, okay.
But we're going to talk positively about Palace, not negatively about United.
I think we should consider both possibilities.
We might come to the second later, but we'll start with Palace. What's the story of Palace's season? Because I mean, they've gone. I don't think I've watched them all season. I think they've gone under the radar a little bit for me.
We've returned to our spiritual home of 12th, having started slowly. There was some late transfer activity that made the start of the season quite difficult. There was a lack of consistency in selection in the back three. And then Glasner eventually found the right way to arrange them. And then it was Chalobah, Lacroix, Guéhi, and they started loads of games together. We became more solid. And then Chelsea recalled Chalobah. One of our other defenders came back from a knee injury to sustain another one. The wing-backs, we've lacked depth there, so they've been a bit leggy at times, and that's been difficult to manage. But thankfully, they've stayed fit. Wharton and Doucouré. At the start of the season, I remember tweeting that Wharton and Doucouré would be like a revelation for a lot of Premier League neutrals who maybe hadn't watched that much of Palace, because they'd both been brilliant for Palace, but not at the same time because of injuries. And this season, like, neither of them have been able to stay fit. Wharton's had this really annoying groin problem that he's needed surgery on, but he returned yesterday. And Hughes and Lerma, who profile quite similarly to Wharton and Doucouré, have been amazing throughout the season, mainly in their aggression. Like, I was reading Opta's kind of breakdown of Palace's surge up the table, and it focuses on pressures in the middle of the pitch.
Surge up the table? Surge up to 12th?
Yeah, from the bottom. Yeah, that is from, we might go down to mid-table.
You didn't ever think that, did you?
Well, I was concerned at one point. Like, I've got a season ticket this year.
It was bad.
It was bad. We got our first win.
Had just gone, and it seemed like
all of that joy from the back end of last season kind of seemed to disappear with Elise and Wharton suddenly like not being there. And yeah,
what did you make of the summer transfers? Because it sort of felt like Glasner wanted to try and work them into the team, and it didn't really work out.
Yeah, it's been a weird one. I think Sarr has been a great success. Like, he's nowhere near as glamorous or as prolific or as fun to watch as Elise, but the running he does with the ball to kind of get us out of pressure. And he's got like 3 assists, 4 goals, or maybe the other way around. So he's been really good. Kamada was on a free, obviously played under Glasner before at Eintracht. He's not been great, and it's been difficult to find. I don't think he's a bad footballer. There aren't really any bad footballers at that level, but I don't think it's a great fit. Like, he doesn't quite suit the wide 10 positions, and he doesn't quite suit the 8 position in such an intense physical league. He's clearly quite clever and quite technical, but Nketiah's been not been great though.
As the striker for a while, right? Was that
so? He kind of started playing as the right forward where Elise used to play,
like a 2.
because and with Eze on the left, so he was essentially playing as like a narrow winger, but without the option of cutting inside onto his strong foot. So I think that role may suit him on the other side a bit better, where he could dribble directly at a better shooting angle. But because Mateta kind of has to play, and Nketiah hasn't really had a run in the league at all in his favoured position, I think he scored 1 goal for us in the Cup against QPR, and he cost quite a lot of money. So when you look back at those summer transfers, they haven't really been a great success, but we have kind of found a settled team that they have a distinct way of playing. So in the absence of be playing as having a season like Forest or whatever, there is still like an identity there, and there's a lot of championship players that we've signed. That's Dougie Friedman's thing, is signing the best players from the championship, and we've done that recently in January, signing Millwall's best player, who scored with his first touch.
Well, another player who's playing very well for you at the moment is Jean-Philippe Mateta, who scored 6 goals in 2025, apparently, which is level with Chris Wood and Phil Foden Very exciting. I mean, that's taken a while to work out, hasn't it?
Yeah, the story of Mateta at Palace is really odd. At first he was like a cult hero who scored important goals, but very few of them. He scored a back heel against Brighton and a header against Millwall, which made him popular, but not like somebody that the fans thought should be the long-term plan. And then Glasner arrived, and obviously the contrast between his style of play and Hodgson's style of play gets players a lot closer to Mateta. So when the ball gets fizzed into him, he's not fighting for 15 seconds to keep it by himself because he has more support, so that helps. But his confidence in front of goal has just shot up. He takes confident shots with his weak foot that he never would have taken in that kind of previous era. You got 16 last season and he's on 10 this year. So he's averaging like just under 1 in 2, which used to be the barometer for like a really good striker. Just under a year ago in an interview with The Athletic, he told Matt Woosnam that given the opportunity, he could be one of the best goal scorers in the Premier League. And at the time, everybody thought he sounded ridiculous, but he has become that.
The comeback kid. Is that what it is? No, the young upstart, the underdog.
The boy becomes a man.
The boy becomes a man.
The boy who becomes a dog.
The boy who becomes a dog. No, I think that's my life story, you know.
That's true.
Yeah, a lot of my online video game characters are named Dog.
I've noticed that.
So every night, I put my headphones on, I get and turn the lights off in my room, and I become a dog.
Is that like, do you used to do that always when like you play Zelda and you choose a name? So you choose a funny
dog.
name.
Yeah, all throughout my life I've picked dog. And then sometimes when I do something good, I win the game, I win a big fight, I score a goal, I go, you know?
It does mean that on the back of your football shirt in FIFA,
it says
dog, which
yeah.
is quite funny.
But I'm a tenacious character. So's Ben Chilwell, by the way. He's joining Palace on loan. And incidentally...
We need the depth. Tyrone Mitchell's barely had a rest.
Got to have that depth. Got to have. That's what I say when I'm looking at the fridge.
We should probably stop shopping in Chelsea's bins at some point, though.
That might be a good idea, but they're so nearby.
And well, this is the huge benefit to us of Chelsea having that insanely bloated squad is that there's always players for us to go, oh yeah, we'll have him.
Yeah,
you don't even need to move house.
You don't have to move house.
Yeah,
right?
we had Gallagher a couple of years ago, Loftus-Cheek before that.
Yeah,
Chalobah this season.
Maybe you don't need to stop shopping there. Keep shopping.
Maybe.
There.
Yeah.
Is the Chilwell thing a full deal?
No, it's a loan until the end of the season, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, well, hope that works out. Best of luck to Ben Chilwell and everyone at Crystal Palace, who incidentally moved above Manchester United in the Premier League table with this victory. Good Lord.
I enjoyed arriving at my Man United supporting dad's house bang on full time as that happened. That was fun.
I imagine you did. Yes. And then you wrestled him to the ground and put your elbow in his throat and said, submit, father!
No, he's got a bad back. I can't, no.
He's got a bad back.
Yeah.
Man United played Kobe Mainu as a false 9, apparently, midweek. Do either of you, JJ, John, do you know about this? Did you see this?
I heard about it. I'm watching it right now.
Oh, is it any good?
Not really.
Oh.
They did that yesterday.
That was yesterday. That was against Crystal Palace.
Yeah, but midweek he kind of played as one of the wide 10s, and it seemed to work because he scored and he got quite a lot of praise for that performance. But yesterday it did not work.
That's where he works best for me in that Man United team.
Right. You said this before.
That's what you were saying in that video about why he may suit Chelsea. It's a similar kind of position.
I think he's better higher up the pitch, and I think he can do lots of cool stuff in little tight areas because he's really, really...
Used to be a striker in the academy, I believe.
Really?
A lot of players used to be strikers in academies.
Yeah, but
Aaron Wan-Bissaka used to be a striker.
It's usually goalkeepers, isn't it? And they're like, he used to be a striker.
But I mean, you remember Mainu's like breakthrough goal against Wolves? That comes from like a skillful dribble in that left half space, doesn't it?
Yeah,
so is that when he bends it around the top corner? Yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, in order to facilitate Mainu as a false 9, Manchester United did bench both Xerxes and Højlund, which feels a little... It's hard to not read into anything that Amorim does at the moment because of how badly it's going, but everything feels quite statement-y.
You often don't need to read into it because he literally tells you what he's doing. It's really good.
I didn't watch the post-match press conference, but was he asked about this? Do we know what he said?
Oh, I don't know. I just meant in general. He just doesn't really
pretty
care.
Open, right?
I quite like it because it means you can't read in between the lines. He just goes, no, he's not playing because of this.
Slot does this as well, right? They've got to this habit of being like, here's your headlines to sort of attempt to deflate it a little bit.
Politicians should try that, shouldn't they?
Yeah,
just like straight up saying, "Yeah, we did it for the money, guys."
Mr. Speaker, he is a false 9.
Mr. Speaker, I put it to the honourable gentleman from MP from Cornwall. Is there one from there, Mr. Speaker? I say we did it for the money, but we do need the money. And if we don't have the money, we'll have less money. And nobody would want that. Nobody would be happy about that, would they? In some ways, I feel sorry for politicians. In other ways, let's play the Midway Game now, shall we? Yeah, Midway Game. Find out after the break if anyone has won the Midway Game.
I won!
No, you didn't.
Oh.
You were close, though, this week.
Again, I'm close quite a lot.
You're always close.
Yeah.
Almost as though whatever you say would be close.
Well,
I refuse to
I'll only
participate.
know.
Yeah, Jhon didn't even give an answer this week.
No, well, that's because I was so close.
Ruben was very far away, but he gave a good answer. He just did it from the other side of the room.
Yeah, very good.
I'm making physical gestures.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. Now, Marcus Rashford has moved on loan to Aston Villa. I think that's all sewn up now, isn't it? They did some announcements yesterday. There was an interview with him yesterday, some photos. Marcus Rashford swapped a lifetime in the red half of Manchester for half a season, writes Steve Hankey, and maybe more for the claret and blue
Side of Birmingham.
Side of Birmingham. Yeah, I guess that's the case, isn't it? I mean, I'm mainly curious. JJ, let me come to you. Do you think Marcus Rashford's going to work at Aston Villa?
I think he'll work there. He's employed now.
Yeah, okay. That's good. Let me reframe the question. Do you think that his employment will bear fruits for Aston Villa?
Well, it depends what the people want.
Right, yeah. Fruit. I think they want fruit.
Well, yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I was trying really hard not to go down the fruit merchant
The fruit picker
route. Yeah, let's see who we end up back there at the end. Yeah. I think it's going to be a decent thing for him. How far is that from where his house would be? Would he be able to drive there still?
I think no, probably not.
Not far. I reckon
Footballers
an hour and a half.
Footballers have done longer commutes than that.
For 6 months, it probably is drivable. I don't think you would want to do that if you moved permanently. But so long commutes ahead, perhaps.
I mean, I think I'm really interested to see what his how motivated he is, because he might have like the real bit about him, like I'm going to show you. Maybe that's what he needed, like the Michael Jordan thing. You need to, I'll show you.
I hope so.
Because then, if at Man United, if he's got that, if he's like, I'll show you, he hasn't really shown that and been called out publicly in training.
Yeah.
As I'm not an ex-pro, but as ex-pros have said, they think that really, really odd. Gary Neville and Roy Keane and stuff like that were talking on one of their podcasts. I think it's called Overlap or something like that. I'm not sure. The one that they do where they sit around
Stick
the
to
breakfast
football,
table.
yes.
It's good that way.
Yeah.
But they were talking about this, how they don't understand that that's what's happening. Wayne Rooney was talking about that, was it?
Yeah.
The Rashford Aston Villa should be good, isn't it?
Yeah, Steve, perfect timing. I feel it was almost like you could see in the back of your head that Steve was giving the wrap-up sign.
I can just feel
You felt it.
the vibe of the chat,
Yeah.
They need wide players, Villa.
Do you not think this is a bit weird? I think this is a bit weird, this move.
Go on then.
Well, there's a couple of things. One is that, so the way that the Villa tend to play is that they tend to push Luca Dean up on the left this season. So they end up with like a back three in possession if they're moving the ball in a sort of more control way. And then that means that the left-sided player comes inside, right? So they've been playing Morgan Rogers and Jacob Ramsey in those positions, right? So it's more of like inside players to allow you to be able to do that. And they do that in part because they've got Pau Torres on the left, who's like their progressive player. That means that Rashford probably isn't going to be played on the left.
But doesn't Rashford come inside quite a lot?
Well, I mean,
I think he does.
I think he's better. I think he's much better from wide areas coming inside rather than starting as a central player. For one,
Is that not what would be the case though? As Luca Digne pushes up,
he's not going to
inside.
displace those two players, Ramsey and Rogers, right? So if he's not going to play there, then you're playing him off the right, which I think is already less ideal. We've seen that he can do that.
I think he's going to play there.
He doesn't like playing on the right, does he?
I don't think he will. I think John's right, because I was thinking the same thing. But like, I think what you'll end up doing is you've got a really good footballer who you could, they've got an option to buy, right? So they could.
I don't know.
I think they do.
I don't know.
Okay, well, let's pretend they don't, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so they've got a player who is just a very good footballer, but he gives you good cover.
Yeah, Rachel's nodding option to buy.
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
So they could buy him, potentially turn that into a huge superstar and sell him on, or something. I don't know, maybe not, but they've got a potential superstar there again. He gives you decent cover for Watkins, like not the same, but similar kind of vibes. Move around the channels, can also run through the centre. His work rate out of possession will be the issue. But like exactly what John's saying, if the way they tend to attack is a way that doesn't really suit him. Because they play John McGinn off the left sometimes as a completely different kind of player.
Yeah. I think out of possession it sort of suits him, right? Because like Villa are very passive in a mid block, so in that respect, I think it works. But
Okay.
I'm not
think
saying
that,
tactically it doesn't make more sense what you're saying. I'm just saying that if I was Marcus Rashford and I was looking for a loan move away from Manchester United right now, I'm looking for somewhere where I can play in a position I want to play. I feel
Near
like
my house.
Marcus Rashford doesn't have a conversation with Villa, doesn't sign a contract with Villa without saying where am I going to play.
But I think he just has to leave, doesn't he? Like, he's not going to play at Man United. That's part of the problem.
Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just speculating.
They were paving the way back for him to play like the whole rest of the whole second half of January. Everyone was making it so that if he didn't leave, he'd be able to get game time.
Sure.
That's in everyone's best interest.
Like, it's obviously easier if he can move away, right? If there is an option for him to do that.
Of course,
I think
but
he would
that
probably
gives
compromise
him,
on that.
Maybe, but that does give him the leverage to at least ask the question, where am I going to play?
I suspect if he plays, he'll play either off the right or as a backup to Watkins now that they've lost Durán.
Wow. Yeah, it's just funny to think, you might go, Marcus Rashford was, starting player for Manchester United, going to potentially be a backup for 6 months to Ollie Watkins at Aston Villa.
Yeah.
Is that why you're saying it's weird?
Yeah, I guess to an extent. It felt, well, at the beginning of the window, we were talking about him going to all of these places like Barcelona and AC Milan and places like that. And now it's kind of like, well, yeah, we'll fit you in somewhere at Villa, which...
I think he wanted the move abroad, which like the foreign clubs couldn't afford. So then he ended up kind of settling for Villa.
And it's a big problem, right? I guess that's the bigger issue here, is that when you get into that kind of position in the Premier League where you're on like an elite contract, you very much reduce your possibilities, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I guess that makes Villa the best option for him.
Okay, well, I'm curious to find out what happens. Speaking of money and big deals and big wages, Jhon Durán has left Villa this season, obviously making space for Marcus Rashford to come and join. Moving to Saudi Arabian side Al Nassr, they've spent £64.3 million on him. It's a big old deal. And obviously Jhon Durán, I can't remember exactly what age he is, 21 or something, is it, Jhon? Yeah. He is a young and talented player. And perhaps unusually talented and unusually young to be moving to Saudi Arabia. There's been a lot of discussion about this move. Understandably, people feel different ways about it. I mean, I think as a kind of foundation, a base note for this conversation, it's kind of difficult to begrudge someone going to earn that much money, particularly if they come from somewhere where they didn't have a lot of money. It was very hard to say no to that. I think I would say yes, possibly. But on a pure, if we leave that to the side for a second and say, hey, we're not, we're just humans here, guys. We're not sociologists. We don't know what we're talking about. We only understand football. Talk about it purely from a football perspective. It feels kind of lame, doesn't it? Like, does anyone think it feels sort of lame?
Yeah,
great
game's
talent, gone to Saudi Arabia. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that's a general consensus, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ruben, you were saying.
Also, just like, if you're going to go there, at least go to one of the good teams where you will, because the issue at Villa seemed to be that he was playing second fiddle to Watkins and he felt that he deserved to start. And he's just joined the team that play Cristiano Ronaldo up front and make him the poster boy for the whole league. So not that I pay any attention to the tactics of Saudi teams, but even at the basic level, that doesn't seem to work.
Right.
Yeah, that's funny.
Like, of all the places to go.
Ronaldo doesn't seem ready to retire, does he?
No, he'll play till he's 59,
40 very soon, I think, isn't he?
He's a tiny bit older than me and John. So yeah.
I think he's.
We're about to turn 40.
No, I'm
fairly
not.
certain.
But who's in better shape? That's the real question.
Well, obviously John.
Yeah.
But, I think,
Ronaldo's 39. He is 40 in 2 days' time.
Yeah, he's 40.
Oh, well, happy
40
birthday.
tomorrow when we release this.
I think the consensus around everyone is that it kind of sucks that Duran's going there because it seems like it's not that you can't watch him. It just seems like he then won't compete for the biggest titles.
Yeah.
But what is it you want to achieve when you become a footballer? Is it at some point you stop having a little the child dreams where I want to win the Premier League and the Champions League. And what I want is to earn loads of money. So I'm like Scrooge McDuck, like drowning, swimming in gold coins in a huge pool I don't need. Why do they have a pool so big?
I don't know.
That made no sense.
It didn't make a lot of sense.
Why did he put his coins in there?
You've got to keep them somewhere.
Well, there was the famous drought.
Where else would you put them in your house?
I guess, yeah.
If you've got that amount of money.
Is there that many coins?
They don't make
your
the
bath
safe
is
that
full.
big, do they?
No.
You fill the bath and then the kitchen sink, and then you realise you need the kitchen sink. What can you do without the luxury item of the pool?
There's not many places in a household that are actually quite voluminous.
That's true. Plus, when you find you can swim in gold coins, I mean, why not put them in the pool? It makes so much sense.
I guess so.
Presumably, if you jumped into a swimming pool full of gold coins, you would just stand on the gold coins.
You'd hurt yourself a lot.
Well, you can make it like paper notes, like when Tony Soprano keeps them round the back of his house,
In the duck feeder.
In the duck feeder, yeah.
You could do.
Notes always much smaller than you would expect, right? Whenever when they're like someone is in a film and they show
There's always a lot less.
It's like this is £40 million and it's just a little wad of notes.
I'd rather a swimming pool
I got
of
it.
coins.
Sorry, Steve's aggressively wrapping up at me. Not twice, Steve.
Can I just say
I saw it and I ignored it, and you keep the hand to your side.
Can I just say on Durán that like we did a section in our deal sheet show on him, and one of the things that stands out, I think, for Durán is that he is potentially going to put up the same kind of goal scoring numbers as someone like Erling Haaland, and I think that's why a lot of people maybe don't realise how big a thing this could be, because if we don't see him put those numbers up in the sort of leagues that Haaland has put them up, he may well go on to be as good as Haaland, but will not be recognised for that as well.
Do you think that there's a scenario where he's only 21, right? He could make this move, come back when he's 27,
He'll be back earlier than that. What I think will probably happen is you take loads of money for that move, you get a huge sign-on fee, whatever.
You play with Ronaldo for a bit.
Maybe you learn off of that. You get a bit of stardom in Saudi Arabia. Then maybe you start thinking, I'll go off to Europe. And as long as you don't drop your levels, and I don't know what the levels are like really to know what that's like. But then you can go and... There's a few really good players that went off to Saudi. Who was a Spanish midfielder that was really decent that went off? He was linked with all the clubs. He was young. I can't remember, but his name is... There's a couple of them that go there and sort of disappear off the radar and earn loads of money, but you can then just move back.
Sure.
Like, is he not going to price himself out, though?
I'm not sure that move back is as easy as it sounds.
Well, we've just seen
like
Jota at Celtic return. But I mean, that's a very different
Jordan
situation.
Henderson moved quite quickly. Neymar's going to Santos.
At the same time, like all of those moves, I would say are like not moves up, right? They're moves sideways back into. Whereas with Durán, I guess the question is,
I see.
Will any team be able to afford his wage to the extent that they'll be willing to do it?
Well, maybe they would, because one other way of looking at it is if you think about it from the Saudi League perspective, what they have right now is the ability to buy famous players. In Jhon Durán, they have now the ability to buy young famous players who might be really, really good. And the only thing missing is the ability to sell a really, really good player back to an elite European team and then maybe become known as a place that can also, be a feeder league for these talents.
Yeah, and it's not like his Premier League goals and what we've all seen doesn't suddenly get written off because he's now playing in Saudi Arabia. So well, if he had come through in a lesser league than the Prem, gone to Saudi Arabia, scored loads of goals, there would still be scepticism over his ability to replicate that in England. But because we've seen him score goals at a really good rate, don't know how sustainable that rate would have been, that might help him get the move back. I wonder how it will affect his place in the Colombia team as well. So obviously nations like that have maybe fewer elite players to choose from, but I believe like James Rodriguez was kind of only folded back into the team once he left his team in Qatar and stuff, so that might affect him.
Okay, fun chat. Right, all that's left to do is play Points Are Bad. Okay, welcome back to Points Are Bad. What an exciting time of the podcast it is. Let me remind you, listeners and participants, that the games that we chose and selected last week were Inter versus Milan. That was an exciting derby there in San Siro. And Marseille versus Lyon, one of the big fixtures out there in France. Now, Inter AC was 1-1. Marseille beat Lyon 3-2. I will have you know that I got a perfect score this week because, of course, that 1-1, that beautiful Italiano 1-1 meant that I added 0 points on that game, having made a very good
spirit
prediction.
of the game to that one. Did not go well.
Didn't go well for you at all, didn't. No, that's right. So I am along with Seb, who had a pretty decent week as well. Who was Seb last week? Liam. It was Liam. Well done, Liam. Liam said 3-1 to Inter, added 2 there, and 2-2 Marseille Lyon, added only 1 there. So Seb and I, or Liam and I, have 3 points added this week. Congratulations to both of us. Jhon, you added 6 points. You spirited of the game in but Inter,
not enough, not hard enough.
Not hard enough, clearly. I mean, you said 4-0 to Inter, and it was pretty far off that. But you were fairly close on.
I can only stand in awe of JJ's ability to pick in the spirit of the game.
Well, he is last, so.
But sometimes I get it near.
Sometimes, yeah. But
like this week.
A broken clock needs fixing. That's what they say, isn't it?
That's true.
That's what they
There's no
say.
use, you might as well get rid of it.
Yeah. Jhon, you added 6 points. And JJ, Spirit of the Game, Lord of the Morning, he added 7 because you Spirited of the Gamed almost everything. Although, you were fairly close with Marseille Lyon. You said 3-4.
See? And so much more rewarding when you come close to it with the Spirit of the Game pick.
Yeah, I mean, you got the result wrong and the winning team wrong, and but did you feel the reward?
Yeah.
Well, good, because your reward this week is you get to pick the 2 fixtures for ahead of next week.
Clearly, the reward of picking 1-1 every week is right up there.
What's the point? Yeah, what is the point of that?
Yeah, okay. JJ, tell me 2 games that we should predict for next week, please.
I've got my games.
What are your games, JJ?
So my first pick will be Leyton Orient versus Manchester City.
Oh, in the FA Cup, is it?
FA Cup 4th round.
That's a fun one.
That's a Spirit of the Game one, I think. I don't think 1-1's going to cut it, Joe, I'm afraid. You might be out of your depth.
Might be a little bit, yeah. I'll have to give that one a...
You never know.
I'll channel the statue of Laurie Cunningham.
Maybe 1-1 is the Spirit of the Game pick.
Maybe it is for that one.
Yeah.
I think it is. The inverse, yeah. And what's the other game?
Aberdeen versus Dunfermline.
Oh, Aberdeen, Dunfermline. That's exciting.
Yes, very good. So as you'll know, Aberdeen started the season very well. And they
Yes.
haven't won a game for, I think, since like November or
Oh
something
my
like
God,
that.
the extremes are insane,
It's
aren't
like
they?
13, well, not defeats in a row, but near enough. Or 14 defeats. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
They call that a collapse, huh?
And for context, Dunfermline are a lower league. So they are in, what league are they in? I need to remember that one. Dunfermline
Championship.
FC. Championship. Okay, cool. There we
Right.
go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's an exciting one. And JJ, we're going to stay with you because you're, of course, the first person to predict some scorelines. So please tell me what you predict for Leyton Orient versus Manchester City.
Leyton Orient versus Manchester City, I think, is going to be 0-3.
0-3. That's a fairly safe scoreline, I would say. Aberdeen, Dunfermline.
3-0.
3-0. Okay. Jhon, we're coming to you now. Leyton Orient versus Manchester City.
So I'm just looking at Scottish teams. There's one called Scone Thistle.
Scone Thistle.
Or Scone Thistle, I
That
guess,
sounds
depending
like
on where.
It sounds initially delicious, but then there's a nasty surprise.
Yeah. No. Sorry, what are we doing?
Do you know how in
Where are
Devon
we?
and Cornwall they argue about which way to put the cream and the jam?
Oh, really?
Neither of them put a thistle on it, though.
No.
What I want from you is a scoreline for Leyton Orient versus Manchester City, please.
0-5.
0-5. Okay, and Aberdeen versus Dunfermline.
5-0. No. Aberdeen are losing to everyone at the
I'm
moment.
genuinely worried about this because they will battle harder than Aberdeen will.
I'm going to say 2-1. I'm going to have
2-1.
faith.
Okay, fine. Seb, coming to you now. Leyton Orient versus Man City, please, Seb.
1-4.
1-4. Okay, a goal for the O's. And
Consolation goal late on.
Manchester City. Oh, sorry. Aberdeen versus Dunfermline.
1-3.
You think Dunfermline are going to win 3-1?
No, 3-1.
Okay, just good to double check that there. Well, for me, as usual, I'm going to stay with my usual. It's 2 1-1s, even though there can't be 1-1 in some of these games. I think. I guess the score like anyway. Whatever. There you go. I think that's going to happen.
After 90 minutes,
Leyton Orient
yeah.
have been paying attention to watching Manchester City over the past few days there, and they've noticed how to get to them in defensive transition. I'm sure it'll be straightforward. It appears to be for absolutely everybody else. Now, that's the end of today's podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Remember to go and check out that link in the description and come see us in Walthamstow in May. And all that's left for me to do is say thank you very much, Ruben Pinder.
Thank you.
Jhon McKenzie.
Thank you.
And JJ Bull.
Yes, thank you.
Steve, Hanky and Rachel.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, thanks. And thanks to you also, viewer. Aga!